Well, good afternoon and welcome, folks. Thank you for tuning in today to PV Talks. I am Steve Bracety, President and CEO for your Prescott Valley Chamber of Commerce. With me today in the studio is Miss Lisa Blyth, Regional Director for First Things First.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Welcome, Lisa. So share with us. Let's get right into it.
Okay, cool.
First things first, you take care of kids from birth to age 5, huh?
Yes, that's the very easy way to explain it. So the longer story is, First Things First is the state's early childhood health and development organization. We were created by virtue of a voter proposition in 2006. So everybody who was voting back then, it would have been Prop 203 to say, hey, we need a centralized organization that really focuses on birth to 5, because that is the time period in a child's life when the most brain growth occurs.
Very true, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. And so the initiative was to tax tobacco products. And by virtue of taxing tobacco products at a slightly higher rate, that created our organization about 20 years ago. And we've been around since, and we've been having a really nice time working in community and in partnership across the state to ensure that kids get and families, the people who are raising them, are getting the supports that they need so that when kids get to school, they're ready to roll.
So taxing people who buy cigarettes, let me see if I can follow this. That tax goes to support First Things First.
Yes.
So something good came out of smoking, huh?
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it's a unique funding structure as well, because we are technically a state agency. I'm an employee of the state of Arizona.
Okay.
And as most people understand the funding structure, the legislature every year, it can be kind of nail bitey for a lot of state organizations, because it's like, what's the budget? How much are each of our organizations? Even though we're a state agency, we've never received any funding from the legislature. We've generated our own for our entire existence from the tobacco tax.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yes.
So share with us, how did you get involved with First Things First?
How did I get involved? My background is in behavioral health. I'm actually a licensed counselor, and I spent a lot of time working with kids and families, and always recognizing in that work, if we had done some things, or if such and such, or perhaps of these sorts of things that happened for these kiddos when they were younger, what would things look like now? And as I sort of learned and grew in my own career, and I came to work here at what is now Polera Health. So my first job in Arizona 27 years ago was on the children's team as a therapist. I learned a lot about brain development, and that's where I really put the pieces together about how incredibly important those first years are. So I spent the first 15 years of my career in behavioral health, and was part of a group here in Yavapai that knew that the proposition was coming to pass. We did some work together in terms of prepping for what that might look like when it actually came to fruition. And I had an opportunity, there's a little blip there where I lived in Maricopa for a few years to do some work, but
the state of
Maricopa. And
yes.
you know what? And we joke about that up here a lot. And it was a good experience to see what that's really like. And then I was really glad to move back up here to Yavapai.
What's the phrase, boomeranged back here?
Yes, that's a good way to put that. And I couldn't wait for the boomerang to swing back here. In any case, I had an opportunity to serve on the Regional Partnership Council for First Things First. We have a very unique governance structure that, and this is in statute. It was part of the proposition that folks voted on that said, because of the state of Maricopa, we want to make sure that when funding is dispersed across the state, the people who live and work there are making decisions about how funding is used instead of all of those directives coming from Maricopa County.
Which makes sense, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We want they have boots on the ground experience. They have lived experience. They have exposure to.
They know the players. They know the community. They know the needs.
Yes, yes. So there are 11 member councils for 28 regions across the state is how First Things First governance structure works. And so I got to serve on the council. And shortly after I was serving on the council, the regional director was departing. And that was the connection for me of this is how I get to line up what I'm really interested in personally in terms of brain development and really supporting families before things are an issue or potentially become an issue, and then take a job to put that work together.
Nice.
And yeah.
Let's talk about BizCare for a moment. And share with us how BizCare is involved with First Things First.
Sure. So one of the things that we're recognizing and that became much more clear during the pandemic actually is how imperative quality childcare is for people to actually be able to show up at work. And so a lot of times when people think of childcare, they think of it as it's a social service or a soft thing or things that moms and dads have to figure out, and it has nothing to do with work. And First Things First has really been working to change that narrative or bring it more to light to say, look, if you want your employees to show up and if you want them to stay at work, it's really important that they have a safe, secure place to leave their kiddos so that they come to work. And so we're talking about it from an economic development standpoint and participate. There's huge growth, obviously, that we're all aware of that's happening here in Yavapai. We're along that sort of semiconductor corridor and things are moving up here.
It is.
And it's going to, So it's going to become even more important. Mm-hmm. And we currently don't have enough childcare slots. So we have brought my notes so I say my numbers right. There's about 6,000 kids in Yavapai who could be in childcare, but we only have about 3,200 regulated slots.
Really?
Yes. Wow. It's a 44% gap.
Gosh.
Right? And so the next piece was if businesses want to be a part of the conversation, how do we do that? What does that look like? And so I did a lot of round robin things to first find out sort of what the focus in each of the communities. And I started in West Yavapai to say, what are the priorities in terms of economic growth and development and sustaining businesses? What are they saying? What are their pain points? And without me having to come and say, this is an issue and you have to be part of this, by virtue of those conversations, and every single one came up, childcare is an issue. And I said, not that I'm glad to hear it, but I'm glad to hear that it's being recognized because I would really like for people to participate in a conversation. So we had a forum last March and it was really specific. We joke about expanding the choir. Those of us who are in it, get it, know it, talking about it all the time, but we need folks where it isn't sort of the first thought, the business community come to the table. So they did. We shared data and information, made some suggestions. And in the conversations, the people who participated, so we had chambers, some economic development representatives, some businesses, and they said, we need a task force to sort of talk about how we can be part of solution. And so that's how BizCare came to be. And it's not been quite a year. And it's been a really interesting sort of culture combination because it's two different languages, it's two different worlds, it's perspective. So how do we bridge that gap in our communication with each other? And then how do we identify a singular goal to move forward?
You know, you're right. It is a critical need in our community. Post-pandemic, a lot of employers I'm hearing are still struggling to find staff.
Yes.
And it's hard to find staff if someone that needs to stay home and watch the kiddos. So I hope you guys make great strides with this endeavor for sure.
Yes, we're hoping so too. And the first place that we started was let's get more specific information about what families are really experiencing and why they're making the choices that they make regarding childcare. So to your point about it's hard to staff a lot of businesses, it's because in a lot of circumstances, it's because it costs more to pay for childcare.
True.
than to work. And so the recommendation is that a family spend not more than 7% of their income on childcare. And in Yavapai, families spend between 11 to 12%. And then Yavapai College did a specific study with our first responders and critical care providers, specifically because they have after hours needs as well. So we have childcare here, but it's the typical, not quite banker's hours, but what one would think of when you think of those sorts of things. And those folks are paying about 16% of their income for childcare. So when you're deciding, sure, I get a paycheck, but does it
pay?
Yeah.
Does it really pay?
Yes. And so
at the end of the day, and it's quality childcare we're looking at.
Yes.
Because, I'm the oldest of 4 boys in my family, and I was the de facto childcare provider.
Right.
And I can tell you, it wasn't quality for me with my oversight. But I'm curious to see, are the businesses getting more involved as far as, the question is, why can't they come together, rent space somewhere, and use it as a daycare center? And all pitch in to the costs, or, I'm assuming there's a big liability exposure for sure.
Yes.
But there's got to be a workaround.
Yes. And so that was another piece of what BizCare started on. It's daunting to some businesses. And what we discovered in the task force is there's sort of this trifecta of barriers. First, you've got physical location,
right? And
you got to retrofit a lot of physical location, because when you're talking about tiny, they can use the big toilets, but you got to have the
childproof,
and childproofing and the safety spaces. And so glad that you said quality, because it's not just about dropping them off and knowing that they're going to get not be harmed. Those people are literally growing these children's brains. And so you want a quality environment. So it's the physical space. It's then the cost to cover the physical space plus pay for the staffing. And there are ratio requirements, because part of quality is, as you've experienced, the oldest of 4 boys. Yeah, that probably still felt like a lot of kids.
Me specifically, I wasn't cutting it back then. I can tell you that.
So yeah, we want ratios too. We don't want one adult for 14 little tiny humans. It's the staff costs. And then it's the infrastructure of, if a business were to have a childcare site, are they responsible for it, or do they just host the site? And it's figuring out the little details of that. Then, of course, sites are licensed and certified, and it's all of those pieces. So another part of what BizCare is looking at is, how can we make that look less daunting? Are there ways that we could create a toolkit or peer mentors or that sort of thing to help them engage in the conversation? Because that's what the challenge is how do we get more of them to the table to actually participate in the conversation? And a good example of a nonprofit entity sort of recognizing that is the Park Collective here in Prescott Valley.
Yes.
The Heights Church, as I understand it, they were actually looking at building another church location, but they paid attention to what the community was saying, and it was, we really need more childcare. And I believe a member of the church was connected, had the space, connected to the space that is now the Park Collective, and they just sort of made a plan, created it, made it happen, and it's really served a need in community. So we have a model right here of how that can work, that example that you gave. It's just getting over this hurdle of businesses whose bottom line is, what's my bottom line? What am I bringing in?
Right.
And helping make the conversation easier to have and participate in so that they will be part of solution. BizCare is not coming at this in terms of going to some business and saying, can you pony up this much money, or can you pony up this much real estate? It's, can you please be idea partners, because your needs and the way that you're coming at this looks different than the people who are providing the service. We need all of those brains at the table.
It's the connections, really, the networking. And it's, someone may have an idea, a part of an idea, and just by piggybacking off that and just seeing it grow from there.
Yes, absolutely.
I love the Park Collective. I've been there myself many times.
Yeah.
I've actually had some events there too.
Yeah.
And that's a great, safe environment. The playground facility looks beautiful, actually.
Yes.
Yeah. If we can replicate that throughout the county, wow.
That would be amazing. Yes, for sure.
So where do we go from here? What's our next steps, basically?
So as I mentioned, BizCare said, let's get a little bit more detail about how families are making decisions or what's impacting their decisions about childcare. And so we have a survey out currently. It's an anonymous survey. It takes less than 10 minutes. I want to say about 7 minutes to complete. It does have some questions in there about income, but they're optional. And again, it's anonymous. It's so that we can sort of compare up to, depending on how many kids you have in childcare, compared to the amount of money that folks have to contribute, so that we have that information that's very local, very recent, to say, this is what's happening right now with the people who live and are potential employees for you, to be part of the conversation and feel like it's real and touchable and not sort of this, it's statewide data. And I can sort of...
No, it's Prescott Valley specific. It's Prescott specific.
Yes.
It's the here and now.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So we have the survey out, and it's you guys have been really fantastic at the chamber, putting out the survey on your website and sending it out to your contacts. Members of the task force have sent it out. The Daily Courier has had an article on October 30th, and they included a link so you can look it up there. Can send it again so people can find it. And we just need information for folks to share about that, and we can use that to move some of the conversation forward.
Well, Lisa, let me ask you this question. If there's someone out there in our viewership, I should say, who wants to get involved, who wants to make a difference, be part of the solution, how would they do that? And what are you looking for specifically?
They can contact me. Is this a space where I give all my information?
This is it right here. This is the moment.
So Lisa Blyth, so L Blyth, BLYTH at firstThingsFirst.org. You can email me, say that you're interested, and I can have a conversation. What we're really looking for is anyone who's interested in being part of, call it a think tank, we call it a task force, because we want to make sure we're not just meeting to meet. We're actually
doing something.
Forward. Yes.
We're doing something. Yeah.
And it's effectively a think tank. We want to brainstorm ideas and ways to engage the business community more in the conversation. And anybody who has any insight into that or suggestions, we welcome that for sure.
And I believe a success for First Things First is a success for everybody.
Yes.
It really is.
Yes, because the bottom line is our young children.
It's our future.
Right? Yes.
They're going to take care of us, we hope, right?
That's exactly right. Yes. Yeah.
Hopefully they got better childcare than what I provide to my siblings.
I bet you guys had an awful lot of fun, though.
You know, I'll tell you, I think back, I made a lot of mistakes with them, for sure. I think you can blame me for how they're raised today. So there you have it. Lisa, I always like to close with a question just about you specifically. There's no right or wrong answer.
Oh, okay.
It's just a philosophical question of such. If you had the gift of either being able to play every musical instrument or speak every language, which would you choose and why?
I think I'd choose to speak every language. I really like the music thing though. But every language, I really love to travel. I have expensive hobbies, so I don't get to do them very often. And so just the idea of being able to travel anywhere and speak the language in that space would be really fantastic.
Perfect. Well, that's all for today, folks. I'm Steve Bracety, President and CEO for your Prescott Valley Chamber of Commerce. Thanks for tuning in to PV Talks, where a community connects, converses, and we all grow together. Until next time, have a safe weekend.